Buongiorno, benvenuti a tutti al consueto quotidiano, appuntamento quotidiano con Alley-Up, il blog multifirma del Sole 24 Ore creato da Monica D'Ascenzo. Oggi ci colleghiamo con una architetta indiana che vive a New Delhi, si chiama Priyamwada Singh e ha studiato negli Stati Uniti, dall'India è venuta negli Stati Uniti, ha studiato, si è fermata qui per molto tempo e poi ha fatto la decisione di tornare in India, a casa. Adesso proviamo a vedere se è collegata. Sembra di sì, adesso vediamo se...
Hi,
Hi Priyam, how are you?
very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How's the weather
Yes.
there? It's good.
Weather is extremely hot today, humid, very humid.
Great. Okay, I'm going to start just by
Yeah,
reading your bio,
okay.
so everyone can get to know you and know what you did. Okay, so here I go.
Yeah.
So Priyam graduated with honors in architecture from CEPT University in Ahmedabad, India. After obtaining a postgraduate diploma in art and architecture at the Stad School in Frankfurt, she went to the United States. In New York, she attended a master's in architecture at Columbia University under Kenneth Frampton's supervision. She also was teaching assistant for Kenneth Frampton, right?
Yes.
While at Columbia, she won the Honor Award for Excellence in Design and the Keenan Fellowship. After the master, Priyam stayed a little longer in New York, actually for another 6 years, where she worked with several New York architecture studios, including the famous Skidmore, Owens and Merrill, SOM. She also enrolled in the AIA. In 2012, she made the decision to move back to India, New Delhi, where in 2013 she founded Common Ground Practice and began teaching at the School of Planning and Architecture in New Delhi and at the Anand University in Ahmedabad. She created and coordinates an ongoing collaboration project between the University of Anand and the Pratt Institute in New York, focused on identity, architecture, and community. In 2015, she won the Activating Space, a sculptural inquiry. It's a competition for the KHOJ, I'm not sure how to pronounce that.
Coach.
Coach,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
An International Artists Association. Among the projects she's working on right now, there's a building complex of 277 units, offices, private residences. Her projects have been published in many architecture magazines, including Architecture and Design, Arc Daily, LA Journal, Archello, and Architizer. Okay, Priyam, so thank you very much for
Thank
being
you.
with us.
Yeah.
So before, just wanted to, unfortunately, we're all living the same experience worldwide, this
Yeah.
COVID-19. So I just wanted to know how was it in India? How was it in the past months? How is it now?
Yeah.
Like, what happened?
Yeah, so just like all other countries, in the beginning of March, I think when we started, or rather it was, I think around Feb, when some of the first, COVID cases started appearing down south. And somehow it just didn't feel real until I would say even mid-March, everybody was thinking, yeah, it's just going to go away, right? Like we just have to be careful and this is another month and it'll be gone. But unfortunately, as we know, that didn't happen. So from 24th of March or so, I think we went into complete lockdown. And the lockdown went on for 3 phases, like 21 days. Then they decided that, we're still in a bad shape, so need to extend. The last phase, which ended now on June 1st, that was actually the end, like 15 days of May, the last 15 days of May, there were some relaxations. So you could kind of, get a pass, e-pass and visit family and people like that. But it was still pretty stringent. And now
Oh,
since June 1st to 30th, the lockdown is taken out, sorry, except for in containment zones. So wherever they've, there are too many cases or the government thinks that they can't take a chance, they're still in complete lockdown. You are not allowed to get out of societies and all. But otherwise, we practically have opened up. But as far as we are concerned, we haven't started our office. Like we're still working from home. We're not physically going into the office. And most of the sites also work is slow. Everybody's being extremely careful. And even meetings, etc., as much as possible. I think just like one meeting we did face to face because it was required. Otherwise, everything is on Zoom and online. Yeah. So
so
pretty much
everything
like
was
everything is
closed.
online. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, so talking more about you, like how was your work affected from this shutdown?
Yeah. So, I would say that immediately, again, there was not too much of a break in the work because most of our projects were in design phases, except for the hospitality projects. So we were working on two hospitality projects at the time. One was going to go into construction, and the other one, we were going to start markings on site, and we're getting into the sort of more development stage. So these two went on hold immediately and are slowly picking up now. But the other projects, because we were in design phases, in fact, it was sort of a boon, I would say, because we got that extra time to, really work on our designs and, like, think more about what we would not get time to do. And the second opportunity I think that it provided was that because that time had freed up and some of the projects that we were just going to start again, got pushed and now are restarting now. So there was suddenly like, we had more time. So we used that time to start like working on some of the social projects which are very close to the heart, and in general practice you don't get time for that. So a bunch of young parliamentarians, politicians, and entrepreneurs got along and started this organization called Parliamentarians with Innovators for India. So PII.org, PIindia.org. And they just floated this thing that people across India give us solutions of how we can deal with COVID, like so any kind of solution that you can come up with. So
So this was like a grassroots in a way decision. Like was it who decided to start this? Just some young politician?
There's a politician. The person I know out of the cohort who started it is called Ghanshyam Tiwari, and he's a politician. He's a very young politician in his early 40s, I would say. And he, along with 3 or 4 more people, got together. And then they created this forum, and part of the forum are, senior politicians. There are lots of NGO heads, etc. Like really people out there, who are decision makers, who became part of this organization. So we took the time to kind of look at the problem. India faced a very specific problem in terms of the migrants, the labor workers, working class of our cities, who suddenly, because of a very sudden lockdown, which was required, were left completely to their own devices. Like,
Stranded,
they were stranded, absolutely stranded, with no daily wage, no way to take care of themselves, etc. So obviously, being in the construction industry, a lot of these workers, I think 30% of the migrant workers are employed in the construction industry, if I'm not wrong. I could be wrong about the exact data. It obviously hit home straight away because most of our sites, even though we don't do design build, but we work very closely with the contractors. So, there was obviously, it hit home. So we took this opportunity to look at how we can, and then also it pointed to the problem that even in pre-COVID times, before COVID hit us, there was a grave need for good infrastructure for our working classes, which we've never really thought of. So, if you look at any one of our cities, you look at Bombay, you look at Delhi, any metropolis, and I'm sure you've seen images of that there'll be a very posh locality and there's a slum that comes up around it, which is extremely third world, yes. But I think like there's no excuse for us to say that, you can't provide for these sort of solutions. So we took this opportunity to say that, okay, can we come up with, anyway, we need a bunch of infrastructure. Can we come up with some solutions which are catering to the COVID need right now, but can be utilized or reutilized later on for all kinds of infrastructure needs, such as community centers, health centers, your housing, low-cost housing, etc., for specifically for the working class, but of course can be utilized in other scenarios too. So we presented
this situation made people more alert that there is a problem and needs to be solved.
Yes. So yes, a lot of people actually are trying to do a lot of things. Obviously this takes time, and hopefully things will change now, and there is a lot of intention. Some things are, there is recently the Madhya Pradesh, one of the state governments actually started an initiative specifically for the migrants, which is the first time. Like there hasn't been any body like this that has come together, right? So they're literally going to start working on that. Then another people that we work with, we're just starting the project. It's called Center for Policy Research. They also, this was just before COVID hit, they started another initiative within Center for Policy Research called the State Capacity Initiative. So again, look, addressing the same problems, because there are lots of problems when we talk about the disenfranchised or the poor of our country. And one of the reasons actually I moved back to India, and I always wanted to move back to India, was because I truly, my heart lies in working in the public sector and in the social sector. Of course, you need to have a, brick and mortar practice to be able to do that. So we do that, and even in our brick and mortar, we try to be as sensitive as we can possibly be in all our designs. But I think what COVID really did for us was, give us that opportunity. Even though we've been doing projects and we've been proposing a lot of these projects, one of them has been was also piloted actually, a skill training center, multi-use skill training center in 2015, I think, around then, 2015 or 16. But then after that, we've spoken to Delhi government. We've been speaking to a lot of governments, but somehow you never had the time or the energy to fully get after people. So now, hopefully, we will be able to, get more traction and be able to see some of these projects actually take light. Hopefully.
Great. Well, we'll keep in touch. You let us know. That's interesting. It's very interesting when things can actually have an active role in change.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. So another question I had for you: How has COVID affected your job? Like, how do you think it will affect your jobs? Like, have clients asked you to make changes to your projects, like safety-wise, to implement any safety measures? Yesterday you were mentioning some things. So if you can explain us what's happening.
So I think most of our projects which are going on right now are either residential, and the residential apartment blocks, which are upper middle class to, sort of posh, high-end housing. Yeah, a slightly high-end housing. And Delhi generally also traditionally has always had larger apartments, like, normal 2, 3, you won't even find a 2-bedroom apartment. Like, it's tough to find a 2-bedroom apartment, right? Like in a upper middle class sort of scenario. So in our housing, we already were doing all the right things, like, cross ventilation, making sure that each and every bedroom, like whatever the builder, it's called the builder typology here. So whatever the builder typology, was not catering to, we sort of started from there and said that, no, we need to go back to simple things like, there should be cross ventilation, there should be enough light, there should be, light should be stopped in the summer and it should be allowed in the winter, just like basics.
So you're going above standards anyway before.
Absolutely, yeah. And, outdoor spaces, public spaces, all of these things we were already doing. And the apartments, like I said, because they're large, so, converting one room in a 3-bedroom or a 4-bedroom into an office space is not the toughest thing on earth. Like, it's easy to change that around. So I think there we've not had too much to think about, except, yes, we are thinking about materials, maintenance. Now when we are speccing things in the interiors of the apartment blocks, we ourselves are also thinking about, things like how is it going to be maintained? Is it microbe resistant? Things like that. Not been very successful in finding too many solutions, but in terms of paints, etc., yes, there've been, there are certain companies which are promoting products like that. In the commercial projects, again, very lucky to have clients who, from the beginning, and this I'm talking like 4 years back, 5 years back, when we did our first projects with these people. First thing that they told us is that, we want enough room for each one of our people. Like, please don't make these, cubby holes where everybody is just sitting next to each other. So I think already the social distancing is taken care of. Yeah. And the buildings that we are working in all have good cross ventilation, and they're well robust architecturally. So we didn't have to worry about that either. We did have to make sure that all our air conditioning systems had enough, air intake and all of that. Like, those are things that we made sure that we communicated to our engineers and, made sure that it's being done. And again, antimicrobial. So in one sort of design change that really happened was that, the tack boards that you have on a desk, on a regular desk. So earlier we were thinking of fabric, and that's what we had spec'd and we had designed. So that was, it's a small change, but it's a huge amount of surface, especially when you're talking about 100 to 120 employees, and
to sanitize it every day would
to
be an issue.
sanitize it exactly. Yeah. So there we changed the detail, and we instead decided to use laminated glass so that you can just write on it. And you can use some other way of pinning things. Also, giving certain details that give people more personal space and things like that. And we are currently trying to see if there are some other finishes on top of surfaces which can help with easy sanitization.
Easier to sanitize, right? Yeah, that's a lot of that is happening here too.
Yeah.
In the United
so
States.
Mostly the clients did ask us. We did have calls where they said that think about these things now even more strongly. Like even if you were thinking about it earlier, now they double think about
think
it.
about it more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And propose it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So India, at least from abroad, it seems like it's a booming market for architecture and design. A lot is being built. So is it really like that? Is our impression correct from outside?
So like I was telling you earlier also, pre-COVID or before COVID, certainly things were different. I am not in a great position to say what will happen in the next year. Things have slowed down tremendously right now. But yes, it was it is a booming market, I would say. Even now, it's not like work has stopped or, we're not getting calls for new commissions. I think it's just, there is a lot of young middle class that has come up. Number one. So there is a lot of need to cater to that. That is first. Second, I think, like I said earlier also, that, catering to the working classes, the rural areas, etc. Like there is just so much that can be done. It's very tough to work here. I will not deny that. But at the same time, there is a lot of work. Like, as a young practice, we're what now, 7 years or 8 years old? That's about it. And the kind of portfolio that we have and the number of buildings and, in gutter renovations, etc., that we've managed to do, I highly doubt I could have done even an iota of that if I had stayed back in New York or, even in Europe for that matter. So in that sense, yes, it is. And the other thing that is really working in terms of the, amount of infrastructure requirement, I think, is also that, and also, it's not that it's all new infrastructure. There's a lot of retrofitting. And I think that makes sense sustainably also, because, you don't want to beat the environment by constantly breaking and building new things. So, like tier 2 and tier 3 cities, what we call, which are the smaller cities, those are really now beginning to see an economic boom. So that's where a lot of the market is also there, I would say. Right?
So since you have worked in the United States for 6 years and then you went back, so what are the key differences between working in the United States and
huge differences?
Yeah. Huge.
So I think and also like in the United States, I worked for SOM, then I worked for Allied Works, again, a fairly big mid-sized firm, and doing big projects, right? So I think that the main difference is that in the States, you literally, have a very you have design time. You go from concept to schematics to design development to construction docs. Then you float a BOQ.
And the client understands that.
The client understands
They want that. They want to see it before you start.
Yeah, exactly. They want to see the whole set. They want that whole, the negotiation with all the contractors who float their their quotations. And, everything is fixed and then you break ground. In India, that doesn't happen. At least in smaller projects, it doesn't. We've not done anything phenomenally large, so I can't say. I'm not the right person to comment on that. But even up to a 30,000 square feet building, which is what we are working on right now, a couple of them, you literally are in design development end, I would say. You've done construction docs, not all, but you have a sense of what is going on. And you'll start work. Ground will break and you will immediately, like your structure's worked out and you have a good sense of, okay, we're not going to change much, but you're still figuring out all the details. You might even be figuring out some of the finishes and the materials, and work starts, right? So it's a very different way of working. And in the beginning, it was a big challenge for me because I have
Is it faster?
I would not say so. No, I think
it's just different.
It's just different. Yeah. The time is, building a building takes about the same time. And in fact, sometimes it is not faster because a lot of stuff. Yes. because, there's a problem, and then you're like, oh, we hadn't thought about this or whatever. And there's just the coordination is much more, because your consultants are also coordinating with you while construction is going on. So there is that, and but you kind of get used to it. I guess you figure a system out within this as well. And so the first few projects, of course, was a big learning curve, and you just learned. I was lucky that our first few projects were not full-on architecture projects. They were either interior or gut renovations, adaptive reuse. They were smaller in scale, which was great. So like 2,000, 3,000 square feet. And all of the sort of, working out how you manage a project in this sort of a scenario was done on the smaller projects. So by the time we got a, like full-fledged building, I was pretty prepared as to what is going to happen, which didn't make it much easier, but at least you're prepared for it. You know what you're, dealing with. Exactly.
Right.
But I think another point I would like to make here is that one great advantage of doing this is that, the way that the Indian construction industry works, for me personally, has been that, you can actually invent a lot more than you would. Yeah. And also budgets usually will not be the kind of budgets that you're used to in the States. That just doesn't happen. Even in large projects, we don't have the same budgets. So
one thing you were mentioning yesterday to me was the fact that everything is very artisanal in India.
Yes. Yeah. So you can get to,
in other countries, everything has to be drawn and then produced off-site. Instead in India. So do you want to tell us more about that?
Yeah, so that's what I was coming to actually, that, there are obviously, again, larger projects, a lot will be spec'd, there'll be sort of more systematic, I would say, and there'll be products used which are already there in production, factory products. But let's say a smaller project, even a 25,000 square feet residential building, we do get the opportunity sometimes to at least the facade, everything is completely can be done in a very artisanal manner. We work directly with the, with the metal workers or the wood workers or whatever material that we're using and whatever we're proposing. In those kind of projects, I guess the door windows and things like that, yes, we use aluminum frame, your regular double glazed windows and the same kind of hardware that you find in the market. But when we're talking about projects like offices and things like that, I don't think we've done a single office, and we've done I'd have to count, but like 7, 8 different types of offices for very different clients or rather different companies. And in every one of them, down to like the door handle, we have literally designed it. And a lot of times it's like, you think of something, then you sit down with the metal guy and with the carpenter and you sketch it out and you tell him, okay, can we do it like this? And they'll be like, yeah, like we can do that. And another really interesting thing that happened actually was one for the coach project and the second for this one, the research lab that we did in IIT. So we did the entire design in Rhino, in fact, in Coach, it was all even done in Grasshopper and, like you had all your automation, all of this, but it was literally hand built by carpenters. So in Coach, they literally like stood in space and, we had the system of A to B, A1 to B1 to C1 to D1. And I would, or one of the other people would stand in front on the ground and say, okay, from here to this, there were 2 guys weaving this whole thing in real time, right? And
so
there,
you're conducting at the scene.
You were literally conducting on the scene, yeah. And that was a very quick project. We had to build it in 15 days because it was an art project. So, we literally lived in Coach, like all the artists for that matter, all the people who came were part of it. And really interesting things happened in that project that, we came up with the detail that, oh, this is how you will knot and this is how you will hang this thing. Very complicated. Like, architect's brain is going like all over the place. The carpenter comes, he looks at me and he says, all you need to do is take a stick, put it through the rope and this thing hangs. And I was like, wow, like the sort of knowledge.
So you learn as well.
You learn immensely because the doing knowledge is really with them. We are not the craftsmen. We really are not the people who know the craft as well. We've seen it, we've indulged in it. It's a day-to-day thing for them, right?
Right. So this is a great interaction for you. I mean, like abroad, it's less. I mean, we still meet with suppliers in the office, but and site when there's a problem, but we never really decide unless you do a design build project, of course.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you something, and this is, I think, common to everyone who leaves their own country. So as myself, I've left Italy a long time ago, And sometimes I feel like I don't belong anywhere anymore. I don't belong to the United States because I'm not from the United States. But when I go back, I also don't recognize myself in everything. So it's kind of like I'm in the middle of the ocean. So you decided to go back instead.
Yeah.
So was it a cultural shock for you to go back? Or did you adjust easily? How many years were you away for? Because you went to
10
Germany
years.
first, and then
10
10
years.
years. That's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
pretty long time to be
It's a long
away.
time. No,
And the
it's a
country
long
can
time.
actually change in 10 years.
Absolutely. It changes a lot. It changes a
So
lot.
especially,
Yeah.
exactly, especially India or China. Or,
Yeah, which is boom, like, changing as I'm talking, it's probably changing, right? Like, yeah.
So do you want to tell us about your experience of going back? How
Yeah.
was it?
Yeah, so I think like initially, yes, it was a huge shock, and I was like all my friends in New York, Indian friends, did tell me, and I'm not from Delhi. I don't belong to this place. I've never lived in Delhi. Delhi is, like a cultural cauldron in India as well. So it's not like it's probably one of the toughest cities in India to live in. And for whatever reason, like long story short, I decided to move here. A lot of people told me that you're not going to fit in, and I was like, I'm Indian. Come on, I grew up in India. What nonsense, right? So, and then when I came back is when I realized that I grew up in a very different environment in India. My father was in the Indian Army, which is a little silo world of itself. Like we literally, like army kids will call everybody else civilian. You really think that you're from the army. You don't believe that you're a civilian till life hits you, right? And it's a very disciplined, small town kind of a, family thing. So, and then I lived with my parents before I moved out. Like I literally finished undergrad. I think did about a year of research work with the professor and left, right?
Oh, it's
So
a
I've
different
never,
place. You were a student, right? You were a
I was a
student in
student,
India, and then you
exactly.
left, so you
And
never
I
worked
left.
before.
I'd never worked. I'd never lived it by myself. I'd never managed a home in India, right? Like, and it's a different ball game altogether than anywhere else in the world. So yes, it was a big shock. It was also a big shock in terms of one, like I said, army, very safe environment. Like it's a very liberal environment as well for women. I never had, I never grew up being told you're a girl, you can't do this. Like that was my family too. But at the same time, the sort of environment I grew up in, everybody went to the club, everybody went to parties. The moms were not standing on one side. That just didn't happen. You saw women drinking, you saw women smoking. Like it was okay. Maybe your mom didn't,
Very
but somebody
liberal.
else did. Very liberal, yeah. So, that. And then I moved to Germany, and from there I moved to New York. So I was used to having freedom. Like, I can get up and go anywhere that I want to. And I just have to be careful, of course. I have to look out for
Of course,
myself, and
always. It's a big city. New
everywhere,
York
right?
is a big city, of course.
Same thing, right? But it's not as overbearingly scary as it can get when are living by yourself as a single person in India. Like it is a different kind of a scenario. So that took some getting used to. But I think it was also that I just had to stop getting scared. You just have to stop the fear, and you just have to tell yourself that there's a lot of fear mongering also that happens. And I don't think I'm absolutely, I mean, I'm very comfortable in Delhi now. Like I know what precautions to take, etc., but I don't think twice about venturing out or doing anything. Like I'm fairly comfortable in the city. So that, I mean, there was a cultural shock. But to your thing of that you don't belong here or you don't belong there, I did feel that. But I think now I look at it more like I belong in both places. Like I can fit in here and I can fit in there.
That's a
So
more positive
yeah.
view.
So I try to take advantage of that, right? Like I pull on the India thing when I need to pull on the India thing, and I whatever, when I'm in New York, then it's different. So I think like I mean, you're culturally rich, right? By
Yes, of
having all the
course.
experiences that you do.
Of course. So coming to that,
Yeah.
so architecture, so we have interior design and architecture. Interior design is a field where women have been around for quite some time right now.
Yeah.
So that's, people are used to having women interior design.
Yeah.
Architecture is a little bit different, especially when it comes to full buildings,
Legit
like being
projects. Yeah.
built from zero and everything. Renovation is different, but
Yeah.
full ground up building is considered more of a man's field.
Man's job. Yes.
So how is it to work as a woman in India, as an architect woman in India?
Yeah.
Do you have to struggle? Do you have challenge? What kind of challenges did you
Yeah.
face as a woman
So,
architect?
actually, before I come to India, I'll say this, that even in the States, it's at least till I was there, and I'm pretty sure it's still pretty much the same. There were meetings where, especially when I was working with Hinges, which is a curtain wall consultancy firm, I remember there was one meeting at, I can't remember which firm, one of these top, New York firms. Maybe it was Grimshaw or one of them. We were in their office, and the project was with a Tokyo architect. And so we were in a conference call, and there were 10, 15 of us in the New York office from various consultants, etc., and the architect's office, another 10 people from there. I was the only woman. And I clearly remember this because I just suddenly looked around me and I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, there isn't, because the partner, there was a female partner, but for this project, there was a male partner who was on whose team I was on, right? So from my office also, there was a man. And there was a moment of are you serious? Like, there isn't a single other woman except for me. Right. So I think it's challenging anywhere, but yes, I did have to face it also on site in the States. One, I'm short, I am slight. So, there were times when I'd don my construction hat and walk in, and these guys would just look at me and be like, really, you've come to do the inspection? And I was like, yeah, I am the architect. And I had to show them my badge and, sort of be strong and climb something. And and then get on these cranes and all. And sometimes I was really scared. I didn't know how to operate it, but you couldn't show that you're scared. And that is, I think, something which is universal. Even in India, same challenge. Here, I had to do the face-to-face with, clients and with contractors more than I had to do in the States. I barely did that in the States. So I have been asked at times, and these are true incidents, that, hi, yes, Priyamwada, so where is the architect? And like, I am the architect. And then they look you up and down and they can't deal with it for some time, and it's always a man who says that. Somehow it has never been a woman who has been challenged by the fact that I was the architect. Like, they might have not expected someone young or something, or young looking, but the minute they are introduced, they're fine with it, right? Like, they don't think twice about it.
Learning curve for them too.
But at the same time, in India, there is an advantage to being a woman architect too, because once you have proven yourself, and it doesn't take too much to do that, like, you just, if you show them that you know your job, then I think they've got your back. And we've had so many repeat clients, so many people who, will vouch for you and will not let anyone. I mean, I've had a meeting actually where, to get a project, a design idea through, in a large, with the CEOs, etc. kind of meeting, this gentleman who I was working with, he basically just pulled off something that, oh, this is in the bylaws. And I was like, oh, really? When did this come in the bylaws? And he didn't say anything in the meeting. I didn't say anything. Later, I asked him, I said that, when did you see this in the bylaws? I haven't seen it. He said, no, I just said it so that we get this in. And I was really taken aback, So there is a lot of that too, that because you are rare, there are not that many women architects and not that many single women architects running a firm by themselves. So there'll be usually couples, right, who work together.
Or someone working for someone else, but not the boss.
Work for someone. Yes, yeah, exactly. So it does work to your advantage too. I have to say that. Like, once you sort of, show your ground, even with contractors, once you talk to them about a few structural details and get them, correct them in a few places, then they're like, okay, fine, she knows what she's talking about. From next meeting onwards, they're all really nice to you.
So what would you suggest to a young aspiring architect, or just someone who's studying in any field that was considering going abroad to study? Would you recommend it? And if yes, why?
Highly. I think for Indian kids especially, like, we are just so spoiled. And honestly, before I left home, if someone told me that you're spoiled, I used to get very offended, because I was like,
spoiled how?
Yeah, like, you really can't even take care of yourself. You're such a brat. And I never thought, I didn't think I was a brat then, honestly. But
so you mean your parents did a lot for you? I mean, that's what you mean by spoiled? No, so it's not that your parents,
no. So your parents didn't. My parents actually never spoiled me, but it's just the whole paraphernalia around you. You have people working in the house, there's a cook, you just don't have to do anything. Everything is being done for you. And if you're a lazy person like me, I was a very lazy kid, like, you don't care. So somehow, somebody or the other is constantly taking care of your things. Whereas when you leave home, you suddenly realize there's nobody to pick up your dirty laundry. There's nobody to, cook for you. I actually didn't know how to cook before I left home. And I was 24 and a half or 25 when I left India. Yeah. So, and I remember in Germany when they asked me that, oh, so, and my dad actually told me, he said, you better learn a few dishes because you're going abroad. People are going to be fascinated with Indian cuisine and they'll ask you
Right.
to make something. So I did learn a few things, but I didn't really know how to, I'd never cooked, right? So when I went to Germany, I remember people asking me that, so, when are you going to invite us over and cook? So I was like, actually,
Uh-oh.
I will, but I'm just letting you know that, I've never really cooked. So I've learned some things, but they all just look, what do you mean you've never cooked? How old are you? And I said, yeah, it's impossible that you've never cooked. And I was literally called Princessa Singh for good
Princess.
for a good 8 months. Everybody would call me Prince, and I was really really sad because it was like, why are you saying that to me? And then like, have you seen yourself? Like seriously, who doesn't know how to cook? And you've never done laundry yourself? And I was like, yeah, because I didn't need to do laundry by myself, right? Like so, so yes, that I mean, I digressed a little bit, but I think like Indian kids certainly must go out, but in general, anybody, like I was telling you earlier also, there's you really come to know yourself when you are out of your context because cultural things, like little things about who you are, why do you do this? Why is this custom like this? Or, whatever. You don't question these things, sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad, right? Like you just don't question because nobody questions you. Everybody is in the same sort of scenario. When you move abroad is when people, or outside of your country, is when you are asked these questions like, why do you do this particular kind of thing in India? And suddenly you're like, yeah, why do we do that? And then you kind of have to articulate an answer, and in
Right.
articulating the answer you are actually clarifying it for yourself. So a lot of your stigmas and dogmas and even I think like cultural practices which shouldn't be there get questioned, and you change as a person. And I think you bring that change with you when you return back to your country, and you're much more conscious of that when you're living, practicing whatever you're doing back when you come back, because you get used to questioning, and not just accepting the status quo. So I
You get
think
a
like
different
that is
perspective. Right.
absolutely. And also you learn so much from other cultures, like just I mean the amount I have learned just by being friends with people from different cultures and I mean, in India, we still have a lot of diversity. So even living in a different city or in a different state will give you some of that. But overall, overarchingly, it's a similar culture. So I think like that is something which is and also as an architect or a creative person, uh, you need to be exposed to all kinds of ways of making and doing and living and being, I would say, like how we
Right.
live. You also question how you live and why you do the things you do. So most of our projects, the reason we do these small little interventions is because we are actually thinking about these things, that okay, in our culture, people don't use dryers still. Like they will actually, this is a very like banal thing, but it actually makes a huge difference in a design, that you need to provide a service balcony, because otherwise people will have to keep their dirty laundry or washed laundry outside on the front balcony. Nobody wants to do that, but they don't have a choice. So things like that, right? Like we are people who like to sit out and have chai, our tea in the evening, right? So are you providing that space to people, or is the new apartment block not providing that kind of thing? Because old homes had this sort of a thing, right? Then the sort of courtyard typology, which is where everybody mingles and meets, or the front stoop, which allows for a neighbor passing by just to stop and say, oh, hi, how are you doing? Like these little things of living, start to translate into design. And I think like that is where at least we derive our joy from, more than how good the building looks. Is how
Sure.
happy the user is in the end, I guess.
Okay, so coming to design. So
Yes.
what about Italian design? Do people in India know about Milano,
Oh,
about the
yeah.
Salone del Mobile, about Italian design and architecture, and
Yeah.
what do they think about it?
I think Italian design is like, if you don't know about Italian design, then you're not a designer worth anything here. I think like, so, I mean, I'll be honest, I did not do interiors in the States. I just did one internship in interiors at SOM, which was while I was still at my mark. And then after that, I was in core architecture the entire time. So I didn't know brands like Poltona Frau, or for that matter, what are the other ones? Italian brands. See, again, and I'm
There's a lot
blanking.
of them,
But
but
yeah, but what I'm saying is like, it is sort of the benchmarks, at least in my opinion, the benchmarks for good design would be Italian furniture, especially. and then Swedish, so Nordic, all the Nordic sort of design, and German. German design mostly is looked at more as, you know, engineering marvels, and but where design is concerned, you see any top, you know, publication and people being published over there. I think it's a bit of a problem also because, you know, you just throw a Italian chair and suddenly you're a star designer. I don't agree with that, but it is a big thing here. And most of the designers, I mean, people do go to Milano and to the Salon.
The Salone del Mobile.
Yeah,
oh, really?
yeah. And almost everybody I know, especially interiors, everybody I know does go to that show every year, and you know, just to see it and to pick products and to pick companies. Yeah, yeah.
It's a great show, actually. I used to go.
No, I know, I love it. I watch it on Instagram. I've never had the opportunity to go till now, but no, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that it is Italian design is certainly very appreciated here. And yeah, the one thing that I was telling you yesterday was, you know, like Italian marble. I mean, in any Delhi home, which is a high-end apartment, the first thing that you are asked is Italian marble. And you're like, India has such beautiful marble. You know, countries around us have such beautiful marble. Why can't we get that? So some of our projects we've managed to, at least where the client was, you know, ours, we've forced them to use Indian marble and they've been happy about it. But in the other floors, it's like, no, sorry, it will not sell, because that's a selling point, that you have Italian marble and you have a heritage kitchen, right? Like these kind of things are selling points in apartments, at least.
They add value to how people add value. Perception of the apartment.
Yeah.
So let's come to you. So you've done many projects in the past years. I know that now things are slower. So what is like your two favorite projects and why?
Okay, so I think like favorite projects is very tough to pick, honestly, because I think everyone, you have a sort of a love affair with each one of them. But but two projects which really and two clients who really got us to, you know, like because of whom we have all the work that we have and are getting more work as I speak. One would be the Jorbagh project, residential project, which is first purely full ground up architecture,
which we
building.
Showed in the post that we posted
in
yesterday.
The post, yes, so. Which has been published in the Art Daily as well. It's been published in a lot of places, but Art Daily, I mean, we were very happy when that happened. So that project, actually, it's a Columbia alumni, somebody who did a master MBA in the 70s, right? So very senior alumni.
So your client was an alumni who went to Columbia like you.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes. So he basically just got to know me, and you know, is a mentor, has been a mentor, and was a mentor at the time to me. Like really, really kind person. I mean, the whole family is literally, you know, wonderful. And they had this project, and he just came to me, and he said that, listen, you know what, will you do this? And I was like, are you kidding me? Of course I will do this, right? And I think like why I like that project, I'm talking about that project, is not just because I got that project and we built it, but because the sort of faith that the client showed in me, in us, immense. This was the first time we were working with this builder who was going to build the building, and they had also never worked with us. So there was obviously a lot of, you know, like initial friction, and they were not used to the way that we designed. We were not used to the way that they worked. So there would be times when they'd just be like, no, this can't happen. You have to change it, etc. And literally through, you know, these meetings, this gentleman would just sit there and he'd be like, listen, this is the design. She's the architect. We want this. This is what is getting built. End of story. And it got built to the last. Yeah, exactly. And literally everything, like, you know, that we wanted to do was done. There was not one thing that we had to compromise on. So I think that's
thing for an architect.
It was absolutely, like, I'm forever grateful, right? Completely grateful. Second,
and you had a lot of artisanal also, right?
Yes.
Things done
so
there,
that's like what, like, you know,
outside, that's all done.
Yes. Yeah. So even like, you know, the marble edging that we had to do, that was an Indian marble on the railings, on the parapet actually. There was a point where it turns, doubly curves and turns, right? So typically what they would do is take a stone and put another stone, and you see this edge. So we literally sat there, and the two of us with the Karigar, like the guy who actually was a stone worker, and spent I think half a day just like getting him to do different details, and finally the detail that worked is what was built. So they were tired of us. They really thought we were the most fussy people on earth, etc. But the project came out really well, and now the result is that thanks to that particular project with the builder, we've done one already. We finished one building with them. We are on a second building with them, which is a very prestigious project for them. So that faith that even they built in us was really, really gratifying. And I think the second project, again, you've shown it in your the post.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a company called Harappa Education. But more than just a company, the person who co-founded the company, Priyamwada Singh, again, a mentor who it's through more roundabout connection. He was also in the States, knows my family, etc. I came to India and just met him because he was somebody who was in education, had been in all kinds of different businesses, was doing a lot of startups. So I just went to meet him to get advice on, like what I should be doing and what does he think and, how should I break into the market. He was very kind, spent a whole hour with me, like looked through all the work, etc. And the only thing that he said to me that remained with me at that time was that, look, there is obviously you're good and you have a lot of experience, but to be like only if you have the staying power, then you'll make it. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. And at that time, it didn't, I heard it and I was like, yeah, whatever. Of course, I'm getting a project tomorrow, right? Like, what does he mean by staying power? But I think 4 years down the line, I knew exactly what he meant. And every time I'd feel frustrated, I would remember that. And I'd just be like, no, he's right. Like, it takes time. Like, things take time. And so he was somebody that I kept in touch with and, was always letting him know what I'm doing, etc. We happened to just coincidentally meet at an event. And I walked up to him to talk to him. And he had just started another program, an education program, and Vedika Scholars. And he wanted an office space done for that and a sort of a, like a different kind of office space. And he said that I have a very tiny project and if you want, just call me. I said, I mean, I'm tiny, really? You have a project, right? Like, please,
exactly. Nothing is too tiny.
Yeah, nothing is tiny. So the next day, or I think a few days later, I went there and I started with that project. That project is also very close to my heart. It's called the Vedika Scholars Program. It's also been published in some places. That's an old shed in a campus, which literally when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, what are we going to do with this, right? Like this long shed. And we had to do this really exciting new office in that. So again, the thing that really, I think, worked was once again, a client who showed immense confidence and complete confidence in the capability, right? I think the first concept meeting that we had, that was it. That was the only sort of very elaborate design meeting that they had with me. And they picked the most, exciting scheme, which was great, and said, roll with this, right? And while we were doing that, like, I think we were in the middle of this project, I got another one with him, then another one with him, and then through him, multiple other places. Like, I can't even begin to, again, thank Pramath for the amount of work that we've generated via him. And then Harappa Education, the one that you posted, right? That was the last one that we did, and we're doing another building for them for that.
So I have a question for you, Priyam.
I
have a question for you. Someone posted the question. They're asking, how do you find the sweet spot between pushing your work and being patient and confident that things will happen? Does it just come with experience?
Yes, it does come with experience. No, so
Psychology.
No, so I think like I have generally I'm a person who gets very paranoid and all those things, but also has this innate confidence, has always had this sort of staying power. I mean, I don't have any other word for that. Since I was a kid, I get after something, I get after it. And I am like this because my dad is like this. And really, like in the family, we are told that sometimes you guys are really obnoxious, because really sometimes you should just stop it and let go of something. It's okay if it doesn't happen, right? But it's just like, if it's there, I just have to really work for it. So I think like there is a lot of perseverance, and I've always been extremely perseverant. And there is a foolhardiness. I don't think too much in the future. I just think of the near future. And, I think like, because I'm not a big planner, it works. If I was a big planner, I probably would not have done half the thing. I would have never started my own practice.
I agree.
Never. Yeah.
Totally.
So I think like that sort of works. And yes, pushing, what were they saying? The sweet spot, right? It's experience, certainly experience.
Yes.
I think that you just have to have faith and try. Sometimes it will bomb and sometimes it will work. So when it bombs, you learn what not to do, and when it works, you learn what to do. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, Priyam,
Yeah.
I think we're coming to the end because it's almost an hour and that's the limit.
Wow. Yeah.
So we really went over everything. So I thank you so much for
No,
being with
thank you.
us.
Yeah.
So this will be downloaded and we'll have it online on Instagram and then also will be uploaded on YouTube. So you
Great.
can all
Fantastic.
watch it.
Thank you so much. I really wanted to thank you for inviting me and giving this opportunity. It's uh, very gratifying when old friends think of you. And right. And yeah, just wanted to thank you as well.
And technology makes it possible,
Yes, technology
which
makes
is
all this
great.
possible, which is great. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon, Priyam.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Bye bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. And everyone, mentre sono ancora in onda, domani ci sarà di nuovo un altro appuntamento con Aliup. Buona serata a tutti. Bye, Priyam.
Bye.